I never imagined sleeping in a stranger's room could lead to a heartbreaking romance. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It began with a simple mistake. My suitcase tumbled open in the airport, clothes spilling everywhere. Among the chaos, his eyes caught mine, dark and stormy, like the clouds that would later burst over my head. I was just trying to find a place to rest my weary soul after that long flight. When I arrived at the small bed and breakfast, I found out it was fully booked. Desperation clawed at my throat. "Please," I begged the owner, my heart racing. "I need a room." She hesitated, her eyebrows raised, glancing at the clock ticking down the seconds. Then, as if by some twist of fate, she pointed me toward a room reserved for an unknown guest. "Stay there. No one's claimed it yet." That night, surrounded by mismatched furniture and walls covered in peeling floral wallpaper, sleep didn't come easy for me. The room felt alive, whispering secrets in the shadows. I heard the creaking of old floorboards. There was a scent, something sweet and smoky, like incense, clinging to the air. I curled up under the covers, trembling as I considered who might have slept in that bed before me. But then, a soft knock shattered the silence. My heart raced. I opened the door, and there he stood, me mysterious stranger. He looked just as startled as I felt. His gaze scanned my face, and I'd swear the walls trembled with the unspoken tension between us. His lips formed a crooked smile that both terrified and intrigued me. "Sorry to intrude," he said, the words falling from his mouth like warm honey. "I thought this was my room." I laughed nervously, the sound bubbling from my chest, unsure if I should invite him in or slam the door. The flickering candlelight danced between us, illuminating the rugged lines of his face, the way his dark hair fell into his eyes, hiding a boyish charm beneath. He had an electric energy, and I could feel it crackle in the space around us. "Maybe it was meant for both of us," I whispered, my heart pounding louder than the storm beginning to rumble outside. Moments stretched like elastic bands, and before I knew it, we were talking about everything and nothing. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows, a stark contrast to the warmth blooming between us. Each laugh was a note in a melody only we could hear. I learned he was an artist, restless in a world that felt too small for him. He shared stories of unfinished canvases and unsent letters, and suddenly, I wasn't just another tired traveler. I was an active participant in his whirlwind of dreams. But the clock reminded us of the fleeting nature of our serendipitous encounter. The storm raged on, and suddenly the lights flickered. I could feel the current of the moment shift. There was something in his eyes, a shadow darting behind them, a secret he wasn't ready to share. As the lights dimmed, our laughter faded into an anxious silence. My heart dropped. What was he hiding? Why was our connection so electric, yet curiously fraught with tension? Just as the storm erupted outside, so did the questions in my mind. I leaned closer, desperate to break the silence, to find out if there was hope beneath the mystery. But before I could speak, he turned to me, eyes wild. "You don't want to know my truth. Trust me." I opened my mouth to protest, but the shock of his words hung heavily in the air. My chest tightened, a lump forming in my throat. What truth? What darkness lurked in his past? And in that moment, I realized sleeping in a stranger's room had become far more than a simple twist of fate. It was a doorway to a heart-wrenching romance or an unavoidable tragedy. I had to know more, but the storm outside felt like a warning, thrumming with secrets yet to be uncovered. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The room was cloaked in a thick silence. Only the rain hammering against the window accompanied us, a relentless symphony that echoed the turbulence brewing between us. I swallowed hard, grappling with the whirlwind of feelings crashing over me. His words hung above us like an unshed storm cloud, one that would undoubtedly unleash a deluge of fears I was not ready to confront. Trust me? That's a hard thing to do when you're standing in the eye of an emotional hurricane, I thought, trying to mask my apprehension with a smile that felt more like a mask of bravery than genuine warmth. He took a step back, as if retreating from an invisible foe, hands buried deep in his pockets. "It's not that simple," he murmured, his voice so low I had to strain to hear him. "You don't know what it's like to carry a burden like mine. You wouldn't want to get close." The very mention of distance hurt. It felt personal, as if he was drawing a line in the sand that I didn't know how to cross. I could sense his walls, constructed from years of experiences that had been sharp like shards of glass, and though I craved to break through, I didn't understand the extent of wielding such a weapon. "You're right, I don't," I replied softly, my heart pleading for understanding as I reached out a tentative hand, bridging the gap just slightly. "But I'm here anyway." Isn't that what?" He interrupted, and for a moment, his anger crackled in the air, though I sensed it wasn't directed at me. The storm raged louder, the wind shrieked, and for a heartbeat, I feared he might disappear into the tempest outside, leaving me alone in this room of fleeting connection. "Isn't that enough?" I finished quietly. It wasn't a war cry, it was a tremulous whisper. I knew I might not be able to save him, but maybe I could at least stand beside him. Through the thunder and the chaos, his gaze softened, the anger melting away like snow on a spring morning, yet the distance remained. "You don't get it. You're new to all this." "Am not," he paused, his hands clenching into fists before he released them, as if letting go of a host of unspoken feelings. "Am not good for you." "Good and bad are just labels," I countered, my voice thick with emotion. "What matters is the truth behind them. You talk about burdens. What if I want to help you carry it? There's strength in sharing." There was a flicker in his dark eyes, a glimmer that made my heart race. It was an acknowledgement, but it was quickly smothered, his walls rising once more. "Don't," he said, the softness replaced with a raw edge. "You don't have to pretend that my chaos doesn't affect you. I won't drag you into my mess. You deserve better." The weight of those words pierced through me. I suddenly felt small, an intrusive force in the fragile moment we'd created. Was I really that naive to believe I could wade through his storm without it sweeping me away? And more importantly, what did he think of me? Was I just someone to fill the void for one night? Another crash of thunder echoed outside, rattling the very foundation of the bed and breakfast. In that instant I made a decision. I couldn't walk away. I wouldn't allow him to push me away. What if I want to be a part of that mess? I said defiantly, my voice trembling but resolute. He shook his head slowly, disappointment flickering in his eyes. "It's not a choice you can take back," he said, his voice barely above a murmur. "My past isn't just a burden. It's a storm, and the people I care about get caught in the crossfire." The vulnerability in his admission wrapped around my heart like a vice, squeezing tightly. What had happened to him? Who had been lost? I wanted to know but was terrified of the answers. As if sensing my silent struggle, he stepped a little closer. This time, however, it felt different, less a distance and more of an unspoken invitation to learn about the man behind the walls. "There's so much you don't know." Before he could finish, the lights flickered and then went out. The room was swallowed in darkness, and my breath caught in my throat. "Just a storm. Just the storm," I whispered to myself, forcing out the panic that threatened to grip my chest. "Stay close," he said suddenly, his voice steadying as he reached for my hand, and for a split second the world outside ceased to exist. The warmth of his grip not only anchored me, but it also sparked a flicker of hope that maybe this wasn't an ending after all but a dark beginning leading to something far deeper. Then, just as I began to believe the connection could transcend the fear and uncertainties, a loud crash was heard just outside the window, a flash of lightning illuminating the night, and in that blinding moment, I glimpsed not only the turbulence of the storm outside, but also something mirrored in his Isa revelation, that hinted at an unthinkable past that entwined our fates in ways I may never understand. I wanted to ask him what he was running from, but the answer was already forming in the air between us, heavy with unspoken truths more turbulent than the storm outside. This wasn't just about me or him anymore. Something much deeper loomed in the shadows, waiting to break through, and the revelation threatened to shift the delicate balance we had begun to forge. "Please," I whispered, pulling him closer, aware that this could be the moment everything changed. "Tell me," but the words remained unstated, and as the rain lashed against the window, a new tremor took hold of me, knowing that what lurked beneath the surface was far more powerful than either of us could fathom. The night stretched on, filled with potential, and even as a terrifying truth loomed, A spark of surprising tenderness nestled in the uncertainty began to bloom, casting shadows in a dance of fear and hope. The darkness wrapped around us like a shroud. The only sounds echoing between us were the relentless hammer of the rain and the shudder of the building against the tempest. It was as if the storm outside matched the storm brewing within, chaotic, disorienting, and powerful. I could feel his heartbeat quickening through our intertwined fingers, a shared rhythm of fear and longing. "Please," I repeated, my voice barely more than a breath. "I want to understand. I want to be here for you." I prayed that my sincerity would bridge the chasm he placed between us. His gaze flickered downward. The vulnerability that had sparked so briefly now locked behind a wall that was painfully high. "You don't know what you're asking for," he murmured, his voice strained, as though he were fighting against the very thing he wanted to share. "You think it's about love, but love is a battlefield. Have you ever been on one?" I swallowed hard, recalling the battles I had faced in my own life: loss, disappointment, loneliness. I may not have fought in the same wars, but I've faced my own demons. I know what it feels like to fight for something worthwhile. He hesitated, and in that instant, I thought I could see the faintest glimmer of hope in his eyes, as if a door was cracking open, but it was quickly smothered as he turned from me, agonized. "It's not enough," he said, shaking his head as if trying to shake free from the sour tang of his words. "You have no idea what's at stake." "What's at stake is us," I implored, inching closer. "What happened to you? Don't let it steal your chance at something real. Let me in. Just this once, be vulnerable with me. I can take it." His body went rigid as if I had struck a nerve. I could see the battle raging behind his eyes, unsure of whether to lean into my warmth or retreat entirely. The storm outside roared louder, amplifying our internal chaos. Moments stretched long, heavy with unsaid confessions, until finally he turned back, the anguish in his expression twisting my heart. "I lost my brother," he revealed, voice trembling under the weight of sorrow. "He was a part of that storm I keep talking about, the one I couldn't save. We were close once. But that night I couldn't find him, and when I finally did, it was too late. I let the chaos consume him." Silence enveloped us, the wind howling like a wounded beast while the truth hung heavy. I hadn't expected that. There it was, the root of all his fears, guilt tangled with grief, weaving a web of despair. I didn't know how to respond to such raw pain, how to soothe a wound that felt so impossibly deep. As he spoke, I realized the shackles he wore were not just remnants of a past but chains forged from guilt. And here I was wanting to thaw the ice around his heart. "You were not responsible for his choices," I whispered, my own voice trembling as I brushed my thumb against his knuckles. "You can't carry that, don't you see?" His voice cracked, the storm within him echoing the tempest outside. "I didn't even try hard enough, and now I can't let anyone else get close to me. If I do, if you allow yourself to care, I could end up losing you too." I could feel the tremor in his hand, feel the hollowness in his heartache, and it shattered something inside me. "You're not losing me," I insisted, tears pricking my eyes. "I'm right here, and I want to be here not just for tonight but for the nights to come. Let me in, let me fight beside you." But as I spoke, a deafening crack of thunder crashed outside, a flash of lightning illuminating the room between us, and in that moment, the fragile connection we had built seemed to fray at the seams. I could see something dark twist in his own gaze, terror flickering like a candle caught in the wind. "Your light," he started, urgency creeping into his tone. "It could get extinguished. I can't let that happen. It's too dangerous." Before I could respond, a tremor shook the building, a force much stronger than the storm outside, sending shivers racing up my spine. The lights flickered, then dimmed completely. The emergency lights flickered on, casting a surreal glow. I felt a rush of panic, my heart dropping into my stomach as we were plunged into a chilling twilight. Then, an unexpected sound broke through the storm, a pinging coming from the window, more insistent and rhythmic than the rain. I turned to look and gasped. The bizarre nature of the sight disoriented me. A figure stood outside, illuminated momentarily by a flash of lightning. They were holding something. It looked remarkable, like a piece of paper, flapping wildly in the wind. "Who is that?" I cried, adrenaline surging through me as I peered closer outside. Just as I began to form questions, he ripped his hand from mine, backing away as though I had scorched him. "No, you shouldn't," but it was too late. My gaze was now fixed on the figure whose urgency seeped through the storm. All I could see were their frantic gestures. The window rattled against the gale, but their movements screamed of desperation. Wait. They look like they need help. He grabbed my arm, pulling me back fiercely. You need to choose. His voice was raw, filled with a fierce kind of anguish I hadn't heard before. Help them or stay with me, but you can't do both. The harsh reality clawed at my heart, and in that moment I stood at a precipice. The shouts of the storm echoed the turmoil in my mind, teetering between confronting new dangers or burying myself with his haunted past. The figure began to move away, but a sense of urgency swelled within me, pushing me toward the door. My heart pounded in my ears, and I could feel the storm demanding an answer. Whatever was outside, it felt intertwined with our own turmoil, rewriting the narrative I thought I understood. Choose wisely, because this time there may not be a way back, he spat, retreating into his own storm, as I felt the pulse of opportunity slip away. Who was out there? What did they want? As questions loomed dark over everything, I was left standing in the remnants of what we began to build, knowing that choosing between him and whatever fate awaited outside would change everything forever. The world outside pulsed with chaotic energy as I felt the weight of his warning pressing against my chest. My instincts screamed at me to stay with him. Stay in this fragile moment where vulnerability hovered just within reach. But the frantic figure outside tugged at something deeper inside, a part of me that craved connection, understanding, a resolution to this storm of silence that enveloped us both. Please, I pleaded, searching his eyes for anything that would anchor him to this space. What if they need help? What if they're calling for someone like us? His face twisted with uncertainty, an internal struggle playwriting across his features, and for a brief second, I thought I saw fear transform into something resembling hope. You can't just risk everything for a stranger, he said. Yet the way his voice faltered hinted that he too felt pressed by unseen hands to choose a path. But what choice could I make that didn't echo the pain we had just begun to unveil? My heart raced, recognizing the intensity of our shared storm, yet still unable to break free from it. What if they have information? What if they know something about your brother? Maybe that could help both of us find closure. Closure? He scoffed, turning his back to me, arms folding defensively across his chest. You think that exists? It's just a story we tell ourselves to cope with loss. You don't know the demons that rage behind me. They're bigger than any story we create. I want to fight those demons alongside you. I implored, frustration bubbling beneath every word. But I can't do it if you won't let me. And if we don't take a chance now, we might never feel the sunlight again. He was silent, the storm outside resonating like the growing distance forming between us. The figure at the window plummeted further into shadows, desperate yet slipping from grasp. It lingered like an unanswered question, and I could feel the pull to reach out, to find my courage amidst the gulfs of uncertainty. Taking a breath, I stepped toward the door, not ready to lose the shimmer of possibility that crackled in the air. I'm going whether you come with me or not. You have a choice here. You can stay in the darkness or step into the unknown with me. Just then, another crack of thunder resounded, shaking the very structure we stood within. The lights flickered once more before fading back into an ominous dimness, an echo of our own unfulfilled desires, disconnecting us further. I turned the knob, determined to see what awaited beyond the tempest. Stop! He shouted, voice filled with desperation that cut through the air. You have to know there are dangers out there beyond what you see. You don't have to sacrifice everything for some flicker in the storm. But I might lose you if I don't try. My voice rose, raw from unshed tears, as realization hit me like another burst of lightning. Is that what this is? Are you so afraid of losing someone that you're willing to walk away from the possibility of love? He faltered, expression shifting, and for the first time I saw a crack in the wall he had built around himself. It's not just love. It's about letting someone in? I finished for him, heart racing. About accepting the fact that you won't always have control? You know, facing the pain can be a part of healing too. Silence enveloped us, the storm outside quieting to a low growl, as if even nature poised itself to listen to our unfolding truth. His gaze dropped, and in that vulnerable moment, I took a single step forward again. But I can't fight alone. Then the air shifted, and without warning, the figure outside moved closer to the door, shadows slipping away to reveal an unexpected reality. It was a woman, her clothes mismatched and tattered, hair whipped wildly against her cheeks as she pounded on the door, her voice breaking through the nattering rage of the storm. Please, help me. They're coming. My heart sank, the weight of her words crashing upon me. A cold dread settled in my stomach. Who was coming? Was this the darkness he had warned me about? My eyes darted to him, searching for his. Thoughts reflected in my mounting fear that he swallowed hard, and I could see the way conflict waged behind his gaze. You could get hurt, he said, the urgency now spilling into his tone. You don't have to do this, I want to. Our conflicting desires collided, and in that moment, the boundaries between us began to blur. But the woman didn't pause, each desperate knock against the door resonating with an insistence for help. The ultimatum of choice left by his warning thrummed in the air like a soldier's march. Will you stay? I asked softly, taking a final step towards him, gripping his hands tightly. Or will you walk the path of pain alone? This could be a moment where we choose something different. Together. But as the door rattled again, the smoke of uncertainty rolled back between us. He looked at the woman and then back at me, and for a heartbeat, everything hung in suspension, the storm outside muted, the chaos within us simmering. It was as if fate itself held its breath, waiting for our choice. That I don't know who that is, he said at last, fear and hope mingling within him. But if we open that door, that's exactly what we need to do, I pressed, shaking, adrenaline clawing my insides. We might find a new path. But please let me know you'll follow me into the storm, no matter what awaits. But just as he opened his mouth to respond, another crack of thunder, louder than before, rattled through the building. The lights flickered ominously as an unmistakable growl of voices rose beyond the door. And then it struck mesomething within him, truths that he hadn't fully admitted, spun free in that very instant. My plea lingered on the edge of realization as the woman's cries morphed beneath the noise, carrying the weight of voices familiar and foreign. For that moment, I was torn between believing in the shifting currents of hope, possibility, and the encroaching shadows where unknown depths beckoned. And I couldn't help but fear that light was slipping through our fingers once again. Let's go, he finally said unsteadily, but I could sense the remnants of his hesitation still coiling around his heart, as though the decision burdened him beyond what we were ready to face. But before we could move, the door flung open, the gust of wind howling through, revealing not just the woman's startled face, but a figure standing behind her, casting a shadow that shifted as he stepped into the dim light of the room. He wore a smile, but it had an edge of something treacherous that sent chills down my spine. And with that single moment, an unsettling realization struck. Some doors should remain closed, while others, once opened, could unleash the darkness we had both been avoiding for far too long. The cold air that rushed in through the door felt like a slap against my skin, a harsh reminder of the reality we had just stepped into. The woman staggered back, her eyes wide as they flickered between the two of us and the figure standing just behind her, his presence demanding attention like a lighthouse amidst the stormy night. Who are you? I demanded, my heart thudding in my chest. The stranger before us wore a jovial grin, yet it felt grotesque against the palpable tension that hummed throughout the dimly lit space. Just a traveler like yourselves, he replied, his voice smooth and relaxed, contrasting sharply with the palpable urgency surrounding us. I heard cries for help and couldn't resist the chance to lend a hand. He stepped closer, confidently interrupting the fragile space we had managed to create between ourselves. Then you should know that we're having a moment here, he interjected, the challenge in my tone barely masking my rising fear. But he only chuckled, his eyes darting towards the woman who stood trembling, her breath hitching as she tried to catch up with the whirlwind of events. It's brave of you to open the door, but naive, he said, his amusement hinting at something darker behind it. You don't know what dangers lurk in the shadows, do you? I pressed my lips together, ignoring his taunts. A glance at the woman showed her shaking shoulders, fear etched across her face. We need to get her to safety, I said to him, keeping my tone firm but wavering internally, wrestling with the growing doubt of whether we'd done the right thing. But even as I spoke, the room was suffocating. The storm outside began to rage anew, and the sounds melted into chaos, voices overlapping, whispers of torment carving shapes in the light. With a calm that unnerved me, he turned his attention toward the woman. Oh dear. Looks like you've brought more than the storm with you. His gaze glimmered, and the tension thickened like fog, wrapping around each corner of the room. Who are they? The words slipped out before I could stop them, dread unfurling inside me. What do they want? The woman shook her head, tears pooling in her eyes. I don't know. They followed me. They were supposed to help me. but now they want to take me back. Her voice trembled, the weight of distress woven into every syllable. They think I know something. Guess they were right, the stranger chimed, twisting the knife with his silky tone. What is it you know? Because it seems you've put yourself in a perilous situation. My instincts kicked in. The urge to shield her swelling as I fought the impulse of fear creeping over my skin. The expressions volleying between us felt like a game, but I realized I was no longer sure who was playing and who was being played. Get away from her! I stepped forward, a wave of protectiveness surging as I stood my ground. The stranger merely raised an eyebrow, seemingly amused by my defiance. Easy there, hero. You have no idea who you're dealing with. He leaned back casually, shifting his weight as though my fight made little difference to him. But you might be able to help her. If you know anything at all. Help her? My voice cracked. We don't even know what's happening. Why would we cooperate with you? Because, he said, with an unsettling smile that felt more predatory than sincere. If you don't, those wanting to take her will soon find their way here. And then we'll see how brave you truly are. The tension grew thicker, wrapping around us like a noose, and the whispers beyond the door began intertwining with my thoughts. Did he know what he was talking about? Each second that passed felt loaded with potential consequences. Each breath steeped in an ancient fear that wove through me like a chilling melody. His smile widened. Think of me as your friendly reminder of the stakes involved. We're all players in this game, darling. The question is who will come out alive. I turned to the woman, who looked trapped between disbelief and desperation. What do they want from you? I asked softly, attempting to soothe her trembling hands. We can fight them. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. But even as I spoke, cracks began to form in her resolve. Two might have seen things, she stammered, her gaze darting to the door, still wrought with danger. Things I wasn't supposed to. They could use it against them. I glanced back at the stranger, whose presence twisted the room into a claustrophobic battlefield. What have you gotten us into? I whispered to her, panic creeping into my words. Just trust me, she urged, voice breaking. We can't go back. They're worse than I can explain. The stranger chuckled, relishing our uncertainty. A bold choice to stay, but perhaps a foolish one. His words swirled inside my mind, battling for dominance as the reality of our situation began creeping in like frost. Shadows coiled around the room, every syllable laced with impending dread. Heartbeats pulsed, echoing like a war drum, and I realized with a start, I was torn between the impulse to fight for her, and the growing fear of the unknown that clawed at my very soul. I won't let her go, I declared, feeling my voice shake but refusing to cower. Whatever it is, we'll find a way. But even as I uttered those words, the shadows thickened, whispering promises of nightmares to come. And the stranger's smile wavered only slightly, a glimmer of interest cementing a new kind of dialogue as if had already calculated our next move. Bold words, my dear, he said, his tone light yet chilling. But what will you choose when faced with the truth? Choking on the question, I realized the storm outside was losing its fury, but ours was just beginning. We stood on the precipice of chaos, where every decision could either lead to salvation or despair. And with each second, I felt the walls of our sanctuary eroding, as whatever awaited outside crept closer, feverishly licking its wounds in anticipation. And then, a whisper rose up from the depths of my soul, igniting dread in the pit of my stomach. The darkness beyond our door was not the only thing we should fear. The room felt smaller with each passing moment, its walls pressing in as if they could hear the frantic beating of my heart. The storm outside abated, but inside, an electric fear crackled in the air. The man's laughter echoed ominously, stirring something dark within me. I turned to the woman beside me, trying to read her expression, trying to find a flicker of hope in her wide, anxious eyes. What did you see? I whispered, knowing the weight of her revelation might change everything. But she just shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. It's not safe here, she murmured, voice hoarse. We shouldn't have come back. I thought I could face it, but now before she could finish, an unexpected kindness stirred in me. I reached out to cup her cheek, brushing away a stray tear. You're not alone in this. Whatever it is, it'll help you. We'll face it together. I meant it with every fiber of my being, but doubt festered like a wound in the back of my mind. The stranger watched us intently, a mix of amusement and curiosity dancing behind his eyes. How touching, he chimed, almost mockingly. But sentiments will only get you so far, runts. The shadows grow restless, and they are hungry for your truth. Suddenly, the floorboards creaked ominously behind him, and my breath caught. I turned just in time to catch the flicker of movement in the corner of the room, a shadow darker than the storm that barreled beyond. My instinct screamed danger. In one fluid motion, I pushed the woman behind me, the protective urge swelling stronger than my fear. The stranger's grin widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. They remained cold, predatory, and filled with the promise of chaos. "Ah, defensiveness suits you," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "But you might be mistaken in thinking you can shield her." I glared at him, keeping my body a barrier between them, the dilemma weighing heavy in my chest. "You won't lay a finger on her." "Not while I'm standing." A smirk danced on his lips as he casually strolled toward the window, peering out into the expanding darkness. "You might think yourself brave, but remember, courage can be misplaced just like trust." He let that hang in the air like smoke. I could feel the weight of his words suffocating the room, a burden that pressed on my heart. The woman placed a trembling hand on my shoulder, her warmth grounding me. "There are people out there watching," she said, her voice a mere whisper. "They won't stop until they find me." Her admission hung between us, heavy with despair. Thoughts swirled chaotically. Who were these people? What secrets had she stumbled upon? My resolve began to falter under the weight of uncertainty. "Then we need to leave," I stated firmly, but a dark tremor in my own voice betrayed my growing panic. The stranger chuckled softly, turning his gaze back at us, mockery illuminating his features. "You're quite the dreamer. Unless you've got a plan to sprout wings and fly, that seems rather impossible." "I'll risk it," I replied stubbornly, refusing to let him intimidate me. "What's worse than facing what's coming? Hiding from it?" The woman grasped my hand, a flicker of hope igniting in her eyes. "We can find a way, really. There's a route out of town where they won't see us." "Cheap thrills," the stranger mused, pacing again, eyes glittering with malice. "But running can only take you so far." Just then the quiet moment was broken by a soft rapping at the door outside. My heart raced as I turned to the woman, a shared flicker of fear and hope passing between us. Whatever waited beyond our prison, we had to confront it, and quickly. "Who is it?" I shouted, voice wavering on the edge of confidence. But nobody answered, the whispered storm that had once promised anguish now a deceptive calm. The stranger's expression shifted, his amusement fading ever so slightly. "One of your friends, perhaps? Or a foe?" he mused, the tension in the air thickening with each heartbeat. With trembling hands I stepped toward the door, half expecting the worst. The shadows wavered, flickering with menace, and even as I turned the knob, I felt an insatiable dread coil in my stomach. But as the door creaked open, revealing a figure cloaked in darkness, the world around us threatened to shatter once more. A familiar voice emerged from the haze, frayed and filled with urgency. "Get back. They're coming for her." Hope and terror collided violently in my chest as I recognized the voice. The last person I ever expected to see again. In an instant, everything I thought I knew warped into a different reality. The room was no longer a refuge. It was the beginning of an entangled web of emotional turmoil and impending confrontation. And the revelation hung over us like a storm cloud waiting to break. Who was ready to conquer their fears now? And more importantly, who would be lost in the chaos of our fight? I stepped back instinctively as the figure emerged from the darkness, my mind racing to catch up with reality. In the frail light that flickered from the lantern, I saw familiar features, sharp cheekbones, tousled hair, and those haunted eyes that had once offered consolation. "Emily?" I breathed, disbelief entwined with yearning. The memories of a past that felt so far removed from this moment rushed back like turbulent waves crashing against a frail shore. "Get back," she repeated, urgency carving lines in her forehead. "They're coming for her. We have to move now." The woman beside me flinched at her intensity, and with a flick of my wrist, I stepped between them again. "What do you mean?" I demanded, the tension in my throat tightening. "Who's coming for her?" Emily's gaze flicked to the shadowy corners of the room before settling back on me. "It's not safe here. They know she's back." "I was warned. But how could you know?" I stammered, battling the urge to pull Emily close. I wanted to believe that seeing her brought with it a glimmer of hope, but the dread weighing on my heart darkened every thought. That doesn't matter right now, Emily insisted, her voice sharp. We need to leave before they find us. This place is crawling with them. The stranger raised an eyebrow, detached from the urgency saturating our atmosphere. How fascinating, he purred, leaning against the wall. A little family reunion? Perhaps I should take notes on the emotional turmoil you all share. I shot him a look that could have burned holes, willing him to disappear. This isn't a game, I shouted, panic overriding my rational thoughts. What do you know about any of this? A calm smile spread across his lips, and he folded his arms. More than you can possibly fathom, he replied, his demeanor eerily serene amidst the chaos. I turned back to Emily, searching her eyes for guidance. Please, I whispered, tell me what to do. We need to get to the old warehouse on 5th, she said, emotion cracking her voice. It's the only place I know they want. Look. I can explain everything once we're there. But the shadows, the woman beside me murmured, her fear spilling over into desperation. What if they follow us? Then we fight, I declared, channeling a sudden rush of courage. There was a fire igniting in me, stoked by the possibility of protecting those I cared for. Fight? The stranger chuckled, his face bordering on derisive. Fighting shadows is as futile as trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. The more you resist, the deeper you fall into their grasp. I clenched my fists at my sides, wanting to hurl something at him just to break the spell he cast over the room. I don't care what you think. I'll do whatever it takes to keep her safe. A slow, cold smile spread across his face. Then, brave soul, let's see what you're truly made of. You might find yourself fighting more than shadows. Before I could respond, a dull thud reverberated through the room, causing the walls to tremble. My heart raced as Emily's eyes widened in alarm. They're here, she gasped. We exchanged fleeting glances steeped in urgency as the stranger's expression morphed into something darker, something sinister. They had arrived, whatever force had loomed over us, hungry and relentless. Move! I screamed, grabbing the woman's hand and pulling Emily towards the door. For a moment, the weight of despair threatened to crush our spirits, but I held onto the flickering ember of resolve within me. As we spilled into the dimly lit hallway, I could hear the creeping shadows behind us, their whispers echoing through the void like a haunting lullaby. We sprinted down the corridor, every heartbeat pulsing with the frantic energy of our escape. But still, a part of me wondered if we would truly escape. What did Emily know? Who were the shadows that sought her? And were we running towards safety or only deeper into the abyss? The weight of unanswered questions pressed heavily on my chest, but I shoved them aside, focusing only on the path ahead. As we rounded a corner, a sudden flash of light illuminated another door, a potential exit from this nightmare. Here, I yelled, pushing it open to reveal the outside world sprawled before us. Rain slicking the pavement and casting glimmers in the darkness, shadow and light waging their own quiet battle. But as we stepped into the open air, a chilling realization gripped my heart. Standing just beyond the threshold was a figure clad in black, their intentions unreadable, arms crossed casually, waiting for us. Welcome back, the figure drawled, voice smooth as silk, yet cut with an edge of danger. I've been looking for you. In that moment, everything halted, time, my breath, our resolve all collapsing into the uncertainty of who this stranger was, and what he intended. And for the first time since entering this storm of chaos, I felt a flicker of dread weave through my veins. We were not just being hunted. We were the prey, trapped amidst the shadows that had chased us into the night. Each breath felt heavy as I stood paralyzed before the cloaked figure. The unyielding darkness of the night wrapped around us like a suffocating blanket, making the world beyond the threshold seem distant and foreign. My instincts screamed at me to retreat, to haul Emily and the woman behind me back into the safety of the building. But I couldn't let fear dictate our next move. Who are you? I managed to croak out, the words sticking in my throat like stones. The figure smiled a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I'm merely someone who knows what you're running from. You can't outrun the past, you know. Every instinct told me to turn and run, but Emily's hand on my arm steadied me. She took a step forward, her voice steady despite the tremor beneath it. What do you want? I want what's rightfully mine, he replied smoothly, glancing towards the woman beside me as if sizing her up. And I believe the two of you can help me reclaim it. Every muscle in my body tightened at his words. The shadows, the danger, everything suddenly hinged on this man's intention. "We're not helping you with anything," I shot back, throwing off the weight of panic that threatened to overwhelm me. His laughter was a mix of amusement and disdain. "You misunderstand. It's not assistance I seek. It's a simple transaction." "We don't trade lives," Emily interjected, her voice fierce but wavering. "What do you want from us?" "I want the girl," he said, his gaze landing disturbingly on the woman behind me. "She is special. She holds the key to understanding what your precious shadows truly are." I felt the air whoosh out of my lungs, a suffocating sense of betrayal curling in my gut. "You're not taking her," I shouted, but my heart trembled with uncertainty. Who was this woman, and why was she entangled in this dark web? The question swirled like smoke in my mind. A flicker of movement caught my eye, and I turned just in time to see a flurry of indistinct shapes rushing toward us, cloaked in a darkness that seemed to breathe and writhe with malevolence. "They've come," the figure whispered, a hint of glee coloring his tone. "And now you must choose." "Choose?" I echoed, my voice rising in fear. "Choose what?" "Stand with me and learn the truth, or run back into the embrace of the shadows. But make no mistake, once you choose, there will be no turning back." Every fiber of my being screamed for us to flee, yet I felt paralyzed by the weight of his words. The shadows pulsated hungrily, their whispers clawing at my sense of safety. I turned to Emily and the woman for guidance, but even their faces were etched with terror, uncertainty flashing in their eyes. Then a sudden noise broke through the tension. A crash echoed from the night, and I watched as the cloaked figure's smile twisted into something almost feral. "They're here for her," he hissed. "Make your choice." In that instant, embers of desperation ignited within me. We had to fight for our freedom, not just physically but in our choices. "We can't trust him," I urged, gripping the woman's arm tightly. "We don't know what this truth he speaks of really is. Perhaps it's better to face the truth than continue running blind," Emily murmured, her brow furrowed in contemplation. Before I could respond, shadows surged around us, dark tendrils reaching and curling toward the edge of our resolve. "Hurry," I urged, my heart racing with the urgency of our situation. "We have to find a way out." But the choice loomed greater than I had anticipated. Dare I step away from the known darkness and embrace the ambiguous light this figure dangled before us? Time slowed, seconds stretching into a lifetime as I sensed the weight of my decision. Then, abruptly, the woman beside me broke from my grasp, stepping forward to meet the figure. "I'll go with you," she said, voice steady but laced with an unshakable fear. My heart plummeted. "No," I cried, but it felt futile against the tide. "I need to know," she said, glancing back at me with tears glimmering in her eyes. "I have to understand why they're after me. I can't keep running." A sudden flicker of understanding ignited in my chest, utter desperation mingled with a profound sadness. "You don't have to do this," I pleaded, reaching out. "You're right," she whispered, a tiny smile breaking through her fear. "But perhaps it's time I confront this past." With a heavy heart, she stepped forward, sealing not just her fate but ours. As clouds of shadows simmered in anticipation, the figure extended a hand, and she took it, sealing her choice among the voids. "Wait!" I shouted, but it was too late. In an instant they vanished into the thickening darkness, the air suddenly stagnant and heavy with the weight of her absence. Dread crashed over me like a wave, and I turned to Emily, searching her eyes for comfort, only to find uncertainty mirroring my own. "What have we done?" I whispered. But before she could respond, a fresh echo vibrated through the night, growing louder, clear, a sound that struck straight at our hearts. A child's laugh broke through the shadows. A voice I knew well yet had longed to silence her laugh, echoing across the chasms of my memory. "What?" Emily gasped, her eyes widening in horror and realization. "Is it?" My voice trembled as a pull of an inexplicable fate threatened to unravel everything I thought I understood. And as that haunting laugh spiraled around us, weaving through the fabric of reality, I felt one unspeakable truth solidify in my chest. We hadn't just stumbled into some darkness, we had awakened something that had been lying in wait. And as we stood there, paralyzed by the haunting laughter that encircled us, I knew with absolute certainty this nightmare was only just beginning. As the echoes of the child's laughter faded, an unsettling silence enveloped us, a silence thick enough to suffocate. Emily and I exchanged a look of shared horror. the reflection of dread pooling in both our eyes. It was as if the world around us had shifted, tilting on its axis, and the thread of reality had begun to unravel. Do you think? Could it really be her? Emily's voice was barely a whisper, trembling with a mixture of hope and fear. I shook my head, unwilling to entertain the thought that had flown into my mind like a dark bird seeking refuge in my heart. No, it can't be. I choked on the words, each syllable dragging the weight of my past back to the surface. She's gone, Em. I lost her years ago. But she seemed caught between belief and despair, a teetering tightrope stretched across the vast chasm of grief. What if she never left? What if she's been looking for you? The thought grasped at my heart, tightening as if trying to crush hope itself. Why would she come here? In this darkness? I don't know, but we need to find out, Emily insisted, her determination igniting a flicker of courage within me, however fragile it felt. The shadows seemed to recoil from her words, drawing back momentarily, like children told to step away from a fire they couldn't resist. I hesitated, glancing back toward the void from which the cloaked figure and the woman had vanished. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown toward a horrifying realization, a chasm of loss threatening to swallow us whole. Just then, a figure emerged in the distance, a fragile silhouette outlined against the dim streetlight. My heart skipped a beat as I squinted through the gloom, and for a moment, something primal tore through the darkness. A surge of adrenaline cascaded through me like wildfire. Was it hope? Ilya. The voice was soft yet struck with laced urgency, resonating with a sweetness that melted into my chest. I took a hesitant step forward, instinct driving me as the truth dawned. Sophie. The figure stepped closer. The shadows threw a veil around her, but in the moment the light caught her face, reality collapsed around me. It was Sophie, the little girl I had once held in my arms, now no longer that fragile child, but a young woman bearing the same eyes I had lost to the depths of sorrow. I thought I lost you, I murmured, tears stinging my eyes, blurring the edges of my disbelief. My heart pounded as the incredibility of the moment weighed upon us, wrapping around us like a fragile glass ball on the edge of shattering. I came back for you, she exclaimed, and in her voice lay the echoes of 1,000 moments we could have shared. I had to find you. I always thought you. The moment shattered anew as a gust of wind rushed through, swirling the shadows, and I felt an almost physical pull toward her. But then it shifted. The darkness shifted again, alive with wrathful energy, and in that instant of vulnerability, there was a crackling electricity in the air. The cloaked figure appeared once more, eyes glinting with malicious mirth. Ah, the prodigal daughter returns, he sneered. But did you forget that the shadows seek their toll? Step away from her, I demanded, my voice rising, but it was caught in the whirlwind of dread converging around us. Why not embrace the truth? He taunted, gesturing behind him as shadows gathered into monstrous forms, twisting and coiling like serpents waking from a long slumber. Sophie is not the only one who has come back to reclaim something. As his words hung in the air like a storm cloud, I felt the walls of my reality narrowing, squeezing around us. But I couldn't let fear swallow me whole. What do you want? I shouted back. Only to collect what is due, he said, his malevolent smile widening as he gestured to Sophie. Her presence belongs to the shadows now, just like her past. No, Emily screamed, stepping protectively in front of Sophie. She's not a pawn in your game. The darkness rippled and undulated like a living entity, thirsting for chaos. I stepped forward, standing beside Emily, resolutely blocking Sophie from view. You'll have to go through me first. I expected as much, the figure replied, his voice dripping with malice. But know this, what lies ahead is far darker than you can imagine. You believe you are saving her, but in reality, you are sealing her fate. Fear clawed at my throat, and for a brief moment I faltered, contemplating the reality of his words. All of this moment of reunion, was it merely a trap? Had the shadow set this up long ago? The laughter resonated again, a cruel echo both familiar and horrifying. Let go of everything you hold dear, Ilya, the figure declared, darkly effervescent. You must confront what you've buried deep inside, or watch the world you love crumble around you. The air thickened, a swirling mass drawing in everything I held precious. But I had Sophie back. I could change the course of destiny, couldn't I? And just as I opened my mouth to declare my resolve, Another roar of laughter surged through the night, filling the air with dread. Shadows whipped and spiraled, as if sensing my indecision, fingering at the very essence of my soul. I wouldn't let her go again, not like before. I had to face the shadows, face whatever truth lay in wait. But before I could act, I felt a moment's warmth at my side. Sophie, despite the looming darkness, reached for my hand, her grip steady and transformative. Together, she whispered. And in that moment an ember of hope ignited inside me. But the shadows were not done yet. The cloaked figure's eyes glittered, anticipation dancing on his lips. Then let the real game begin. In an instant the world around us blurred, colors swirling, and before I could comprehend what was happening, darkness came crashing down, and a new reality unfolded before us, a reality where the line between the past and present began to blur irreparably. What awaited us in the depths of that darkness, I could hardly bear to imagine, but somehow I had to try. As the shadows clasped around us, a gnawing certainty clawed at my heart, whispering one final dreadful question. Would we become lost within our own histories or break free and reclaim the future? The air around us thickened, swirling with darkness that felt almost alive, and panic ignited the very marrow of my bones. But Sophie held tight to my hand, her energy grounding me as I drew strength from her presence. Remember, she whispered, her voice unwavering. Together. The shadows writhed, coiling like restless serpents, drawn to our shared warmth and the flicker of hope we represented. I squeezed her hand tighter, fighting against the suffocating weight of doubt pressing on my chest. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I was not facing them alone. This time I wouldn't falter. Then let's do this, I said, heart thundering in my ears. I turned toward the cloaked figure, my resolve hardening against the tension crackling in the air. We will face whatever truth you think you hold over us. His laughter echoed through the dimming light, and the shadows flickered in time with his amusement. Ah, such bold words from a broken soul. But remember, dear boy, shadows carry more than just darkness. They hold the truth you fear to confront. Suddenly, the shadows began to pulse and churn, gathering towards a central point until they formed a swirling vortex, revealing fractured glimpses of moments long past. Each image danced before my eyes, a mixture of heartbreak, loss, and memories that had haunted me for years. I saw Sophie, the little girl with laughter that warmed my heart, playing in the sun, her joyful spirit untouched. But then it shifted, harrowing scenes filled with darkness, panic, and chaos. The last memory of her rippled through the dim shadow before Meher's tiny face, pale and scared, staring back at me as I lost the grasp of her little hand. "No!" I shouted, stepping forward as the vision twisted into a new form. "This isn't how our story ends." The cloaked figure leaned in closer, his dark eyes gleaming with malicious delight. "Isn't it? You're willing to face this darkness, but do you know the price? To embrace the truth means to confront the past you wish to shatter." I could feel Sophie take a hesitant step towards me, the quiet dread pooling in the pit of her stomach. "I can't hide. I want," she declared, and I could see the weight of our shared past beginning to lift from her shoulders. "It's time to break free," she continued, a fierce light igniting in her eyes. "If we face it together, we can rewrite this. We can reclaim our lives." The vast expanse of memories twisted, shifting with our intentions. The laughter of a child caught in the shadows echoed around us, teasing and taunting, but we were no longer afraid. Embracing each other tightly, we prepared to confront our deepest fears, our darkest truths. The shadows around us began to waver, caught between our determination and the chaos they possessed. "Stop!" I shouted resolutely, channeling every ounce of my strength into those words. "This is our story, our truth." As if compelled by our voices, the shadows recoiled, snarling and biting, but the surrounding darkness began to fragment, revealing cracks of light. The cloaked figure's amusement began to curl into something akin to confusion. "You think you can escape? You think you can rewrite fate?" "Yes," Sophie asserted, her voice steady as granite. "We choose our fate. Our connection is so much stronger than your darkness." And in that moment, the very fabric of reality warped and shifted beneath us. My heart raced, mirroring the chaotic energy surging around us, a kaleidoscope of shadows and light intertwining. But instead of fear, something deeper blossomed in my chest, the realization that the truth of love and connection, despite past mistakes, was far more powerful than any darkness that sought to consume us. The shadows began to dissipate, scattering with all the tormented memories they held as light burst forth like a sunrise breaking through a gloomy dawn. And in that unfolding light, I felt the presence of my past, the guilt, the pain, the lost moments begin to wash away. Sophie and I stood together, hands clasped, as we faced the remnants of our transparent fears. Light engulfed us, filling the spaces once occupied by darkness. "We're free!" exclaimed, and the sensation echoed through me as if I could finally breathe deep, each inhalation cleansing my very soul. Looking at Sophie beside me, I felt an overwhelming wave of emotions rise up. Love, loss, courage, all binding us together in a tapestry of resilience. As the last of the shadows fled into the fading night, the cloaked figure stood stunned, disbelief playing across his features. "You cannot be free," he stuttered. Then he dissolved into nothingness, unable to withstand the light spilling forth. In the aftermath, silence wrapped around us, sweet yet heavy. It felt as though a storm had passed, leaving a serene calm behind. I turned to Sophie, tears filling my eyes, overwhelmed with joy and relief. "You're safe," I whispered, my heart swelling as I reached out to cup her face. "We did it. We faced our shadows." She smiled, a radiant warmth making her glow as if the light of the dawn had come alive within her. "And we'll keep doing it together," she replied, voice unwavering in its promise. As the reality settled around us, vast, breathtaking, filled with infinite possibilities, this moment would never be one of loss but a foundation for new beginnings. Every heartbeat echoed with the reassurance of love, undiluted and fierce, echoing louder than the thunderstorm that had once engulfed us. "No more shadows, only light," I vowed, my voice filled with conviction, and she nodded, her smile returning everything I thought I had lost. As we took a step forward into the new day, a glimmer of dawn kissed the horizon, painting the world around us with hues of promise and renewal. And I knew, in the silent promise that hung in the air, that as long as we were together, we would always be enough to rise against the shadows, because love, bright and fierce, transcended time itself, a storm we could weather, hand in hand, forever unwavering. Even in the darkest of nights, we will always find our way to the dawn.